Okay, fine.
I got Johnny Webb on the phone from the UK as well. Johnny, do me a favor and yeah, hide the video sharing so I could see my Skype screen.
Are we going to Skype it?
No, 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 no. You're gonna stay on video. This is the station owner's gonna connect me. Here we go. Okay, he's gonna call in about 2 minutes, and then you're gonna hear music. Unlike the other show, there's no break, and it's only 57 minutes. You'll hear the music at the very end. When it's about 10 minutes till, I'll give you a heads up that we have about 6, 7 minutes left, or maybe when it's 10 minutes till the end of the show. Forgive me. I will tell you so. That way we could start shortening the answers, and then I'll give you a minute to say anything you want, and then I'll announce next week. And if you don't mind, wait, as soon as the music's over, if you could just still hang on till that way it disconnects properly, and then I could say my goodbyes to you.
Okay, good. Will I stay on right now then?
Yeah, yeah, stay exactly. Just stay on. We're gonna go on in about 2 minutes. He's gonna be calling less than that. Usually at 5:57. So a couple points I wanted to talk to you if it's okay with you. First of all, being that it was JFK's assassination last week, is that off the books? Or you want to not touch that area?
No, let's leave that out. I don't think that adds. There's so much going on right today,
Okay.
politically, that I don't think we have to delve too much in the past.
Okay. Okay. Good. So I'm gonna let you take control of the politics, the political questions, especially. I might bring it up by the Republicans winning
Hmm.
the majority win, and then
Yep.
also I don't know if you've been getting Bassett's emails lately. The DVDs have finally been shipped to the citizen hearing.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
so maybe you can make a comment on that. Congressman Cook obviously said that hopefully there's some white hats out there. And then, of course, Paul Hellyer, on the other hand, being a witness, says he was happy he did it, happy he was able to change some minds, but he's of opinion that it's since they're the same people running that the black operations of it may not happen that way. But I got to give you guys all credit. Honestly, you've had a hell of a great life. What you contributed, you're all in your 80s. You are suffering from physical problems associated with age and other things, and you're still
Hmm.
making massive impacts in the world. I did want to ask you in the future. I know you got stuff. I won't bother you long, but if I ever was make it easy and call you during the day and record that, would that be okay with you?
Sure. You just it'd be catch as catch can. Sometimes I'd be in good shape, and sometimes I wouldn't.
Oh, no, no, totally understandable. But what's your ideal time if you had to pick a time for anything?
Oh, certainly around 1 o'clock
Okay,
my
okay.
time.
Yeah, yeah, Pacific. Yeah, I'm in Pacific too. So I will keep that in mind. So any minute he's going to be commenting. I know you said that Snowden comment last year. It's been 11 months since we did the other show. Since this is the other network, this is Art Bell's network. I don't know if you're aware of him. This show the audience hasn't heard you except from the loyal listeners that followed me from to both stations. If you don't mind commenting, you made a great statement saying something along the lines of that he was a hero. If you don't mind revisiting that for a moment, but by all means, we'll.
Okay.
Since I told Stephen Bassett, since he was on a few weeks ago before my good old Merrill, I told him obviously we'd bring up the citizen hearing. So if we could start with that, jump into the political drama. Do you want to take calls or no?
Uh, we can towards the end. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be helpful because this is an hour straight on, so this is a long time for me, and
Gotcha.
so calls would help me take a breather.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I don't mind. So there we go. Here comes Keith Rowland. Mr. Rowland, welcome to the show. Let me hide the screen sharing here. Uh, Johnny, can you hide my screen? What is wrong with this? I can't see the rest of them. Nonetheless, it's working. Mr. Rowland, say hi to Senator Gravel.
Hello there. Here we
Hi,
go.
Mr. Rowland.
Ah, you're sounding good. All right.
Yes. Landline.
Good.
Yeah,
Definitely
good,
landline.
good sounding.
Hey, so we are going to take callers, Mr. Rowland, near the end of the show.
Sure, no sweat.
people
Or
can-
halfway through the show.
Yeah, here. Do you have the calling
At any
number?
time, see how it goes. See if you light up the board on calls. Then we can take some to take the pressure off the board.
Okay. Yes, because honestly, sometimes They'll come in huge hordes. Sometimes they'll come in throughout. Sometimes they're intimidated. I remember the first time when you were on, Congressman Cook was on, especially when he was on. They were sending questions via chat, but they were intimidated with him.
And I encourage you to check out the entire lineup.
We are getting near.
There's truly something for everyone.
Yeah, about a minute, a little less.
Look forward to sharing our fascinating guests and their topics.
Senator, aside from the Republican winning the majority and obviously the other political issues, you want to leave Ferguson out of it? I think we should.
Yeah, totally. I've got no space for Ferguson anyway.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I'll follow your lead on whatever political issues we're going to come.
Well, you bring up the things you think you're relevant.
Well, yes, by all means. One of the things I wanted to ask you was if you were president, how would you handle?
Let's be quiet and set. Here we go.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Researcher on a mission with Dr. J. Andy Elias.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Welcome back to Researcher on a Mission Radio, ROAM. I'm your host, Dr. J. And as always, we have an incredible show for you today. But today is a super special show. And of course, it is truly an honor for me to be speaking to the person who's going to be joining us. This person has done so much in his life for the country of the United States as well as the world. And even in his mid-80s, I got to give him credit for continuing to go on. There's a few people that I've had on, every single guest I hold up to respect, but there's a few people that I put the extra mile for, because to me, for continuing to doing what they're doing, they are, they hold the highest book in my record. And without further ado, this is United States Senator, retired, of course, Mike Gravel, served 69 to 81. Senator Gravel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And though I may be retired, I still try to stay active on political issues that I care about and speak my mind about.
I'm very glad you came in at this time. I know we were speaking about this for a couple of months of the time, and we were able to actually do this post-election. And we're going to get to the citizen hearing in a moment, because that was a big thing. Stephen Bassett finally delivered the DVDs. But I wanted to ask you now that the Republican Party finally won the majority. Do you think there are going to be any changes? Do you think maybe economic wise, and as far as the military? I mean, obviously Obama's been taking more action than I would have ever thought, but for some reason he is. What issues spark out to you the most that you would like to be handled? What's going out of hand? That's the secondary question. And how would you handle it if you were in that power?
Well, you put a lot on the table, but let's take the issue of the election, Republicans winning. It's not so much that the Republicans won the election, it's that the Democrats lost the election by being milquetoast, by moving over to the right rather than where they should be on the left. So there was no alternative. So whoever made the loudest noise, whoever garnered the greatest amount of money for the overwhelming, I mean, we're talking several $1 billion that was spent on the campaign. And so, and the fact that there was a very small turnout. And whenever you have a small turnout, meaning the wealthier the more economic groups, the wealthier, they turn out. And so in this particular case, they turned out for the Republicans, and the Republicans won. Now, what do you think is going to happen legislatively? Hardly nothing. The gridlock will continue between the president and the Congress. The issues of health care will be fought over, which is really a tragedy. when the legislation came out of committee, the polls showed that the American people favored single-payer health care in over 70%. And it didn't even come out of committee and mention it. So the Democrats were derelict in actually addressing what the people wanted. And so the battle since, and of course Obama was detached from the process and above the process that took place in the committee. And of course the legislation was written by the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry. And that's in line with Obama's closeness to Wall Street, and also, of course, with the Democrats wanting to suck up to the economic power of Wall Street. And the tragedy is that now we have a healthcare system where a major portion of the money or the cost of healthcare has nothing to do with healthcare. It has to do with the process of subsidizing the insurance industry and subsidizing the pharmaceutical industry. We're going to find that though the Republicans want to use healthcare as a wedge to defeat any Democrat in the future, we're going to find that when we do an analysis of what this healthcare system represents, it's going to show that the cost of, on the order, let's say, of 100% for healthcare, 40% of it or more is going to be for activities, administrative activities that have nothing to do with actual healthcare. And you'd think that we would have learned from our studies of foreign governments and how single payer has really benefited the consumer in need of health care. And that's not what's going to happen in the United States. We pay more by a large percentage than any other industrialized nation today for health care, and we get considerably less as a result that would benefit the consumer healthcare needs.
You're absolutely right. And before, we used to be known for the country that had the best healthcare. And making a few points on what you said. First of all, during Obama's promising of Obamacare, of global healthcare, at the time when people weren't as educated on it, they all wanted it. Sure, yes, free healthcare. But once it actually became enacted, more and more people were polled and said they'd rather not have it. I've in fact seen 2 doctors that have actually posted signs in their offices that says we do not accept Obamacare. And then there was a poll not too long ago where it said more than half the doctors polled said they would rather leave their practice than continue practicing under Obamacare. And you mentioned the subsidies that were given to the insurance and companies as well as big pharma, who are big contributors. But why did they need subsidies? Maybe they're charging low premiums, but the deductibles are very high. And all of a sudden, if you have, say, 50 million, 100 people enrolled in some plans, now you're just guaranteeing that everybody's enrolled. So the revenues are going to go up. And like you said, more administrative costs, but none of that's going to equate to better health care. A very, very tragic issue at all. How would you fix it? What do you think is going to happen? Because we're going to have squabbles.
Well, what's going to happen is eventually, and this could be a decade or 2 decades down the road, eventually we will have single-payer health care. This is the norm in the industrialized world as to how best to deliver product to the consumer, the healthcare recipient, at the most economical price, meaning that you just pay for health care. Forget all these frills of subsidies to the insurance industry. It's just not necessary. And so it creates jobs in the insurance industry at the expense of proper health care for the individual. So I would say that as soon as we begin to see the abominable economic impact of this Obama healthcare system, the people are just going to be disgusted with it. See, right now, what we're in is a dialogue, and the Republicans are keeping this alive by want to get rid of the Obamacare. But make no mistake about it, they're not talking about replacing it with single payer. You know, that's socialism. Of course, when you have corporatism like we have now with the system, it's not a solution. And so the Republicans are going to distract us from a clear analysis of how bad the Obama health care system is. And at the end of the day, you're going to see that there will still be upwards of 10 million Americans who are not covered in their health needs. And so what will happen in the future? The dialogue, the battle will continue, and the Democrats will be defending a terrible position. They'll be defending the right to enrich the insurance companies, and of course the Republicans will be attacking them, just as a case of appealing to the American people over the failure of the Obamacare system, but they won't be offering anything that will be substantive other than to benefit the corporate interest that they represent at the end of the day.
You're absolutely right. Again, the corporate America is, yes, we need a free market society, but these corporations are getting out of hand. They're dictating everything for everything else by being such huge campaign contributors, and therefore not legally supposed to owe favors, but you kind of sometimes are inclined to. And obviously, if you were involved with a certain company prior to going office, then my guess is if you're going to go back to that company afterwards, you would definitely want them on your side when you're in office, especially if you're going through a re-election. But like you said, the corporations are the ones that's going to benefit.
Well, let me give you one example, which I think is absolutely egregious, is that the Medicare cannot, with the new prescription drug plan passed by the Republicans, with the proviso that in law now that the federal government could not use a group discount to get a better price for the drugs. And so this is by law. So this means now I get most of my meds from the VA, and the VA can use their power as a purchaser in volume to get discounts, to get the drug cost down to a reasonable level. But now the federal government, by law, passed into Congress, and the Congress says, and this is several years ago, and it's not been corrected to this date, and it's the most shameful exercise of a gift to corporate America that has existed. By law, the federal government cannot secure a volume discount for the drugs that it pays for.
Yes, exactly. And what's going to happen is the quality of the healthcare is going to go down because doctors are going to leave. The people that should be being funded, or what this whole plan of Obamacare is the intent may have been good, but obviously the way it was written is clearly not going to go the way the majority of the people thought it was. Basically, in essence, you're paying.
It's so complex. It's a maze. When you listen to somebody explain the various hoops that people have to undergo to enforceably acquire an insurance policy, I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling, and that in itself is going to be such a discouragement to the consumers that my God, they're going to look at this network of activity. This is bureaucracy run amok.
Yes.
And of course, it was written by the Congress for the benefit of the private sector business interest.
That's right. Big pharma and of course the big insurance companies, which of course are worth billions of dollars. Let me take this gear, staying within politics, and ask you this. Obviously, you've seen a lot of changes with the switch from the executive branch going from Bush to Obama over the last 6 years per se, going on 7 almost in essence, or it's going on the 6th year officially since he wasn't sworn until 2009. What have you seen changed in a good way for the citizens, and what have you seen that's gone that Obama's done that is not so good, aside from what we've already spoken about, that you would change?
I'm hard pressed to find anything that I think has been a substantial benefit by the Obama administration. Oh, it may do little tidbits here and there. I'm happy he's giving coverage to the immigration problem and the millions of people that are affected. I'm happy with that. I would view that as a plus. However, it pits him in contest with Republicans, but that's the appointment of Sotomayor maybe to the Supreme Court was beneficial in that regard, but there's not much else. His foreign policy based upon violence and war, and this is a person who, in the first few months of his administration, in fact, it was in the first month of his administration that his name was entered into the contest for a Nobel Peace Prize.
That's right.
And he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And he hadn't done anything. He hadn't done anything other than make a few comments about his opposition, quote, to the war in Iraq. And that's all it was comments, because he has pursued war as assiduously as George Bush, in a much more sophisticated and clever way. Rather than boots on the ground, we've used drones to commit mass murder, because when you kill people and you have innocent civilians that are killed in a process, it's just horrific. His whole approach to, remember, he campaigned on transparency and making the government less opaque. Well, he has done more than any other president in recent history to make the government, to ruin the transparency or our ability to find out what the government's doing. Decidedly so. He'd take a person, his desire to prosecute a hero like Edward Snowden, who's done so much to inform the American people, which should have been done by the members of the Intelligence Committee of the House and Senate. But no, Snowden released this information so that we could see what our government's doing to us. What impact has it had? It's difficult to assess, because the structure of our government does not permit the proper participation of the people. Then next, WikiLeaks, prosecuting or attempting to prosecute Julian Assange for informing the American people about what their government is doing. And then, of course, third, the most egregious of all, and that is Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning, who's been sentenced to 35 years. And the only thing that she was guilty of was giving information to the American people about the malfeasance of government at the heart of it all, of what's been going on. And so here the government and the same thing now with Snowden, WikiLeaks, and Manning, and that is, these are the messengers that are bringing information and knowledge to the American people about the malfeasance of government. And so the government prosecutes the messengers and promotes and elevates those who have committed the crimes that the messages inform us about.
You're absolutely correct, and I'm so glad you actually took those thoughts from my head, because that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, was Edward Snowden along with Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. Like you said, those are the messengers that warned us basically that the government has overstepped their bounds. They are really abusing the fact of the Patriot Act, of using wireless taps and spying on citizens, and the stretch that basically to classify something as being a national security interest, all they need is reasonable suspicion, which doesn't even raise to the height of probable cause. And therefore, you can almost link anything up. So you have everyday citizens that will never pose any sort of risk to us. And yet, like you said, the people that are being prosecuted are the messengers. Snowden, there's a warrant for treason. And I remember not too long ago, I think it might have been the Attorney General said, come on back to the United States. We won't execute you. Plead guilty. We'll give you life without parole. Really? That's what he's going to do? Come on.
Yeah. And you won't even get a fair trial either.
That's exactly. And as you said earlier, the biggest point, he was the messenger. Okay, so according to contract, maybe he did violate a secrecy oath. But guess what? That's what whistleblowers need to do. When someone sees something is not right.
But let me point out, he violating the contract is nothing. You know what the contract of the Congress is under the Constitution? There's 3 activities. There's one, the informing activity, informing the people about what's going on in the government. The second one is the legislative activity, and the third one is the oversight activity. Well, we know that they don't do much oversight, that they're co-opted. The committees in Congress are co-opted by the agencies that they supervise, or the industries that they supervise. And so most people don't realize that Madison, Jefferson, James Wilson, our founding fathers all felt that the most important activity of a member of Congress or a member of the bureaucracy is to inform the public as to what the government is doing. That's the primary role of a member of Congress. Now, the only thing you get out of Congress is the manipulation and praise of what they're doing, even though what they're doing is stupid. And so the information process, which has been exercised by the whistleblowers, is the filling of the void of the inactivity or the irresponsibility of the Congress and the government bureaucracy to tell the people what is going on. Now, the foundation of a democracy rests on an informed electorate so that they can react to government policy that they may or may not agree with. And this is the least that's done, and is done by whistleblowers who exercise unbelievable courage because they jeopardize and they know that they're putting their life on the line. And a classic example is what has happened to young Manning, who had a greater sense of the responsibility to the Constitution. Manning and anybody else, they don't take an oath to the president or to their corporation. They have a responsibility to defend the Constitution of the United States from threats from within and without. And that's exactly what these people have done, and they're prosecuted because they've adhered to the Constitution in a much more circumspect manner than anybody I know in the Congress today.
The people that are doing their job on the lower levels, working for these companies, just like you said, are the ones that are actually following the Constitution, yet when the elected people are doing the exact opposite. They're overstepping it, and they're not doing what their job is. Like you said, we elected them to be our go-between, our in-between for the government. They're supposed to keep us informed, and we elect them to represent the people. The first 3 letters of the Constitution, we the people, the framers of the Constitution, the founders of this country, must be rolling over in their graves for what is happening right now.
Oh, they certainly are, because, we the people being uninformed, and we are uninformed. Oh, I follow these issues very closely, and it's almost a full-time job. Well, you can't expect the normal citizen to devote 5 hours a day or 6 hours a day to become informed. They have to rely upon the media. They have to rely upon the proper communications of people in government and in the legislature. And they don't get this. They don't get this. The media is sold out to the corporate interest involved, and you see the bias all the time. It's self-evident if you've begin to analyze it very closely. You're asking about Obama. Well, he has prosecuted whistleblowers 5 times more than than all the presidents that preceded him. Now, that's an interesting record to have. The other is his milquetoast approach to closing Guantanamo, which he said he would do, but he hasn't. His approach to copping out entirely to the military, and that's very tragic. In fact, the best statement that I heard was Leon Panetta, who has a book out, who's a little bit critical of Obama, but not that much. But he's the one that told Obama that the best way to deal with the Pentagon is to just follow what the generals want. Now, give us a break. We're supposed to have civilian control of the military. We do not have it, and we have not had it for quite a long time, and primarily in Obama's administration in that regard. Other things on foreign policy, the games they're playing with Iran. Iran would be a natural ally for us in bringing stability to the Middle East. But no, we've demonized the Iranians because it's a religious state. Of course, we are a de facto religious state in the United States. I'd like to see an atheist get elected to president, but no. With respect to Iran, we're still smarting over the insult that they gave us by keeping prisoners 400 plus of our embassy employees, which essentially happened by accident because that was not their original intent. But when they saw our reaction, they did. But their reaction is understandable because, you see, we destroyed their democracy back in 1952-53 when we forcibly deposed and paid for the deposing of Mossadegh, because he had the temerity to nationalize British Petroleum's interest in Iran so that Iranians could get the benefit, and they were not getting the benefit of the oil revenues under BP control. There are instance after instance where the U.S. has intervened in their affairs. And now this joke of talking about the fact that Iran wants to have a bomb, and that's the reason why we have to sanction them and do all these terrible things to them. Well, first off, Iran was not the one who first made the move to have the bomb. This was done under the Shah, and it was the United States of America that provided the funds and the money to build a research reactor that would be closer to building a bomb than the reactor that the Russians have built for them. And so you get a situation today where we keep the Middle East at bay. We demonize the government of Iran through the American media, and so that there's a bias in the American media about Iran. And of course, the neocons in this country had as their goal a war with Iran. Most people forget the fact that the Lieberman and another member, not so prominent, was the one that put the resolution in that permitted and empowered George Bush to invade Iraq. And then now there was another, that was in 2002. There was another, or 12, I'm sorry. But there was another resolution that was introduced, and Hillary Clinton voted for that one also, like voting for the first one. And that was a resolution to give George Bush the power to invade Iran. And of course, we all know the push for that was done by Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. All of this all it's done is complicate the ability to bring about stability in the Middle East. And our closest ally, other than Israel, is Saudi Arabia, which has spent more money to educate Islamists to jihad and hatred of non-Muslims. This is the whole Wahhabism and the schools, Wahhabi schools around the world within the Muslim communities. That was basically funded by Saudi Arabia, and that's the country that is so angered at Iran. So now you've got Israel and Saudi Arabia that are pushing the United States to penalize Iran for the fact that, their anger over the fact that we destroyed their democracy. If we would just leave them alone, they would regain their democracy. And but no, the excuse and the hatred is the fact that it has a theocratic element as part of their government, and to much degree we do ourselves. So that's just, so we could go on Obama in that case, on and on. Let me just finish by Obama by just pointing out the fact that when a human being sits around the table and decides who you're going to kill with your drone, now that in my mind is the most obscene thing that could happen. And so here the bureaucracy regurgitates up a person's name and says, oh, this guy's a real threat to the United States. He's somewhere in Yemen. He's somewhere, God knows where. And we're going to kill him with a drone. And, of course, as we do that, we kill about quite a number of innocent people, whether it's in Pakistan or Yemen. And so that's what our president was doing in a hands-on fashion. That, for me, is beyond the moral pale. Enough said with respect to Obama.
You're right. We can go on for weeks and weeks on this end, just on this topic alone, and even spend just a super considerable amount of time on the Middle East. I'll just throw in a couple points real quick before since we are a little over halfway the show, I'm going to get back to something that happened last year. But point being is Iraq. They were fighting the Iranians in the 80s. Why? Because we lost the Shah, who we put in power, as you mentioned, and he was basically doing what we told him. And of course, we helped the Afghanistans fight off the Soviets. And then, of course, when we just dumped them after the war was over, that's what created all these people that were so mad at the United States. And then you have Rumsfeld visiting Iraq, meeting with Saddam in the early 80s and late 70s, and essentially giving him weapons and telling him how to fight off the Iranians. And instead, 12 years later, he denies ever meeting him until he sees footage of himself, denies ever shaking his hand or any of that. And then, of course, he's one of the proponents for invasion. So like you said, that place, the stability, we are not helping it on any way. And then Obama
and it was that on that meeting, that's very, very important, because when Rumsfeld was meeting with Saddam Hussein, part of the deal that we made with him was that we would give them intelligence to be used in the course of the war, which instigated by Saddam Hussein, not by the Iranians. And the use of chemicals against the Iranians and later against his own people by Saddam Hussein was nurtured and paid for by the American taxpayer in our agreement with him, and that's punctuated by the meeting that Rumsfeld had at the time. And of course, you hear that these weapons of mass destruction, are being attempted to by the Iranians, when in point of fact, it's been made a religious issue in Iran that they will not develop a nuclear bomb, nor will they develop any weapons of mass destruction. That's the political position and the religious position taken by the religious leadership of the country. But we don't take that at face value. We punish them, and all we do is increase the hardliners, and there are always a set of hardliners in the country. We empower them to the detriment of the ability of the more moderate governing elements of Iran. So here again, our foreign policy is a disaster. And we could go into great detail. I don't know if you want to pursue it, but the whole issue with the Ukraine today, which the Americans have poisoned the whole attitude we have towards Russia, leading to a possible rejuvenation of the conflict we had with the Soviet Union. When in point of fact, you don't have to read between the lines. You don't have to go into deep intelligence. All you got to do is listen to the public statements by American officials. Newland, Undersecretary of State Newland, who's married to a very conservative, well, one of the neocons, in point of fact, pundits. And so Newland has made a public statement, and she was the one that said that the United States has spent over $5 billion to bring about regime change in the Ukraine. Now, what is the United States spending money to bring about regime change? Why not leave them alone and let them choose their own regime? And so what they, and of course there was a similar instance in Georgia with Saakashvili and two other countries when when Saakashvili invaded a neighbor. It was the Russians who asked the United States to stop him from doing that, and they made off like we didn't know what was going on. And so Russia stepped in and solved the problem. Russia is a different country than ours. We say that, oh, it's authoritarian and they control the media. Well, who controls the media in the United States, if not Wall Street? So here again, it's a question of looking more deeply at these problems, and as you do that, you come away feeling that, boy, we have not done a good job in this country with respect to that. And you see there's a certain immorality in the diplomacy that we practice. When we are wiretapping the telephone calls of the head of Germany and of Brazil, what do we and it becomes known, how does our reputation, how do Americans feel about their country, and particularly with respect to torture? We're supposed to be a moral country, and yet we have, for the last decade, been involved with wanton torture of people. I'll give you one example. The person who was the planner for 9/11 was captured, and he's been waterboarded for over 100, considerably more than 100 times. Now, the excuse is, oh, we got to waterboard them to get intelligence. Well, I'll tell you, I have a background in intelligence, and torture doesn't get you much in the way of intelligence. But because they'll tell you whatever you want to hear in order to stop the pain. But waterboarding somebody 100 times plus is not trying to get intelligence. No, what it is, it's just sadistic revenge, sadistic conduct by fellow Americans who take it upon themselves to wreak revenge on this person. It would have been much better to leave the waterboarding alone, take him to trial, and he would have been convicted and put to death. But that's not the way our government operates today, and it's wrong.
I'm glad you brought those points up. We got about a little over 15 minutes of the show, and I want to change gears, but let me comment on a few things you said. Of course, what does it show to the rest of the world when it's showing that we're spying on all our allies and their heads of states and their phone calls, and even as going down to the phone calls of them talking to their mistresses and all that? What does that do? That doesn't do anything good for foreign policy and our relations with our allies. And then torture, like you said. When someone is being tortured, what are they going to do? They're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. You were an intelligence officer, which I failed to mention earlier, during the Korean War. And so obviously you are well versed in these tactics and how this works. And like you said again, over 100 times, that's beyond being sadistic. It's going to revenge. And sadly, some of these people being waterboarded are for the wrong reasons. I've seen a documentary on Guantanamo Bay where a couple people were released. Why? Because they were taken because their names were the same as someone else who's on the terrorist list. And these people were truly innocent. And as a matter of fact, some people are released, and because of the punishments they received in Guantanamo Bay, they come back as terrorists. But anyhow, we can
we create them. We create them as terrorists because they feel the injustice to such a degree.
Yes.
No, there's no question that here we were paying bounties in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in other locales. We pay bounties to get people that we think are going to be activists against the United States. Whether they're activists or not, somebody's collecting a bounty and giving payback. I know of one instance about Afia Siddiqui, an MIT graduate doctor, and she's been sentenced to 86 years in prison. She's 42 years old, and the details of the case are horrific, and our government conduct in that regard. And she's a Pakistani person that's probably the most known person in Pakistan, and so we keep her here and is punished when, from what I've seen and read about it, it doesn't even pass the smell test for justice. So, and this is just one case. There's numerous cases that we have. But I hear time is running out here. So,
and the scariest cases are the ones we don't know about. But again, we can go on and on about this, and I'm sure we definitely will. I want to spend the last remaining time of the show to talk about the citizen hearing, something which you participated in, which, again, this just goes to show how much service you're doing to the world. You came in open-minded, you and 5 retired congressmen, and heard over a 5-day period testimony from over 40 individuals, a lot of them military, FAA, 7 countries total, American colonels from the Air Force and other branches, as Army, one of them, and of course generals from other countries. And now, at the end of those 5 days, all 6 of you were convinced that we were being engaged by some sort of intelligent race that's not originating from here on Earth, and B, the government's been covering it up, going along with all the secrecy we've been talking about earlier. Now, finally, these DVDs of the citizen hearing have been delivered to 535 sets exactly to every member of the House, as well as all 100 senators. Do you think we will see change? And if not, how would you have handled this situation when you were senator?
Well, first off, I don't think we'll see change. But let me just state one thing about the hearings that I participated in. They were excellent. I think it was just a very landmark process that was put forth. And I come away with one very simple conclusion, I think, that sums it all. It is the height of human arrogance to think that we are the only sentient beings in the cosmos. It's the height of arrogance to think that we're alone and so far above it. And so I would say that the hearings rendered a great service from an informational point of view, and to some degree it punctured a little bit the biasness of the media in that regard. Now, whether the Congress will react, I don't know. It would take a member of Congress to pore over these 5 days of video, and so we can hope. Now, it was my view, which is at variance with what actually has happened, and I don't want to disparage that because who knows? It may well succeed. I hope it will, but I think that what we need to do is to act at the international level, because some time back the Prime Minister of Grenada Prior to the attack that we made on that country, was where they passed a resolution creating a commission within the United Nations to address the extraterrestrial problems or the information that is occurring throughout the globe. And so that commission has never been activated. The United States is a member of that commission, but here again, we've been a member to sabotage any possible effort that the commission would undertake. And so I think an effort at the UN level, because we are the laughing stock of the globe on this particular issue, because these incidences of UFOs and other elements have occurred across the globe, not just over the United States. And some of the best evidence has come from abroad. France, for one, has been totally candid with the knowledge that it has in this regard. And so I would think that the way to circumvent the myopic view of or suppression by the American government would be to go to this commission and fund it, get it funded either privately or publicly, and get it to do its work, and that is to collect information on this particular subject from all countries of the globe that have incidences of some event that has occurred that we don't know what it is, how it is, but we do know there's something happening, and in that regard.
Coming full circle to what we mentioned, corporations. One fear that I've said several times on these radio programs is the reason why we're not really going to see much change with this government with regards to this topic is because they've been back engineering and obviously dealing with these artifacts from recovered ships from 1947 earlier even. So there was another famous case, Cape Girardeau incident in Missouri, 1941. The military, first it was found by locals and they thought it was a plane crash, and a minister came to administer last rites to the dying in pilots, and of course then they realized they weren't human, but nonetheless they deserved their rights before they passed, and so then the military came and scooped it all up. But even if you went by the 1947 number, that is almost 70 years of them having this technology. So we can clearly would hope that something good has come from back engineering this technology. Now, the reason why I say I fear that we're not going to get much out of it is because I don't think so much is in the government hands anymore. I think at the time things went to the military and then the newly established Air Force and everything else, so the U.S. Army initially. And then now I believe that they're all in corporate hands. Corporations don't have to answer to the American people. And as we pointed out,
that view, and I share that view and underscore it. It's these defense contractors that have acquired this knowledge and are the ones who have been doing the reverse engineering to their economic benefit.
Yes, exactly, especially with military applications. And that's a very, very big problem to worry about because, China hacked and stole billions of dollars of research and development from the Department of Defense a few months, maybe a little longer than that back. And of course, we see all these high-tech advancements. There was somebody who I wish was around to testify, but sadly he passed away. His name was Colonel Philip Corso, who wrote an amazing book, which is actually what brought the defense minister Canada. That's actually what when we were asking him on the story last month when he was here. He'll be joining us again soon for all you listeners out there. And he said that what happened was being a member, being the defense minister, he knew a lot of people that were in this book. This book was basically detailed a man who was working in the Pentagon, a Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso, who worked in the Research and Development Foreign Technology Division, and he was handed alien artifacts, and he was taken an unlimited budget and told to go to various companies and see what can be built with them. Things such as carbon fiber, fiber optics, night vision, lasers, even though things we've been working on, some of them were perfected, and of course Kevlar are just some of the things that he was involved with, and patents, paper trails can lead to him, and the companies involved were IBM, Pac Bell, and just to name a few, DuPont. And point being is, if they were using this to create the military applications then, and of course we would assume that they're being in use now, we want to protect that at all costs, but at the same time, it's denying the world the knowledge of something like you said, it would be extremely arrogant of us to even believe that we were the only people. And now with all these extra planets being found, and people forget one thing, is when you with the Kepler telescope finds a Goldilocks planet that's similar to Earth, well, who's to say that whatever life can't live in a different manner? So even though we're finding planets similar to what we can inhabit, that's not necessary to say that all the planets that we found can't house life. But again, this goes down to denying the world something in exchange for national security. And the question becomes, at what point does national security, going all the way from the Patriot Act to torturing people in Guantanamo Bay to hiding, and not just hiding something like this, but ridiculing people, outweigh what the right of the people are? And I ask you that if you were the president and you were given a full briefing such as Eisenhower allegedly received in 52 from Truman, which a lot of documents are able to correspond to that lately and bring more light to it, would you have shown this to the world, or would you have gone the route that he did and said, well, they're not quite ready, and we don't know how fast these things can fly in our skies undetected, so let's cover it up? What would you have done?
Well, I would certainly operate from the position that the American people are entitled to know everything that's going on, and the people of the world are entitled to know everything that is going on that we have held secret. Here again, we go back to the fundamental of our Constitution with the speech and debate. In other words, the primary job of the Congress and of the government itself is to inform the people what they're doing, and to turn around and say that, oh, the people aren't mature enough to handle this information is a joke. If there's anybody that can handle the truth of what the government does, it's got to be the American people and the people of the world. They then have an opportunity to react as to what the people, what the government's doing that affects the people. Either you believe in democracy or you don't. And clearly, the leadership of our country does not believe in democracy. We pay lip service to it, but we don't believe in it, because if we did, we would trust the people. This is part of what I've been doing for the last couple of decades, and that is that there's only two venues to be able to make fundamental change in our society. One is the government, but that's where the problem lies, because they're not going to bring about change. We're going to get more and more of the same. And the other venue are the American people, or the people of the various countries. Now, they don't have the power to effect change. All they have in our representative system of government is the power on election day to give their fundamental power away to elected officials, who obviously then abuse that power for their own personal selfish interest. And so the answer is, we have to find a way to be able to empower the people to play a role in democracy that is more significant, considerably more significant than the power they have today. And that, of course, is with direct democracy. People empowered to make laws. Lawmaking is the central power of government. And so if the people are to participate in government, they have to share in the lawmaking powers that they give away to elected officials. Now it's time for the people, in partnership with representative government, to be empowered to make laws and to make them in a deliberative fashion as legislative bodies, the rules dictate. And that's legislation that I've written called the National Citizens Initiative, which would empower the people to be able to participate and truly participate in their own governance. Now, how can this be brought about? It would be an end run around the government, because under Article 7 of the Constitution, which is what the...
We seem to lost him in his middle of his point. Let's hope his phone didn't die. Let's see if we can bring him back. If not, we'll have to thank him afterwards for joining us. But I wanted to give him a final statement for all you listeners.
Forwarded to an automatic voice message.
Everybody hang tight. Let's see if we can. If not, don't worry. We are near the end of the show. And he will come back. Senator Gravel is a nice guy and 85 years old. Let's try again. Hang tight, everybody. It's trying. My guess is, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, I'm afraid we were cut off. I don't know what caused it.
That's okay. It just showed you dropped. Maybe they don't like what you're saying, Senator.
That's a possibility.
We're at the last couple minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a major point. I'm glad you brought up the democracy point, because there is no gray area. If you start spinning democracy into a favor of your own where it's not about the people, then all of a sudden you start changing democracy to either a totalitarian government or a socialistic country or a communist. But the point is there's no gray area in democracy. And like you said earlier, we need to be giving the people everything. Now, we have just literally a little over a minute and a half left. And I wanted to give you the chance, because one of the things I was saying earlier in the show, the very beginning, there's a few people that I really hold up to high esteem. Paul Hellyer, you, and a few of those other people who are still in their 80s and still doing things, because you were around when and you've seen history in the making and changed history. But history repeats itself. A lot of the people are making the same mistakes. So in 1 minute or less, if you can give your message to all the listeners out there of what they can do, which I think go out and vote. You kind of already impressed that, as well as maybe where they can find you, your website and such. Final message.
Well, the answer is not just voting. Obviously that's not working because of the corruption of wealth of the whole process, and it's going to get worse because this money is going to go to the elites that they're going to put into the system so that the policies conform to their selfish interests. The answer is the people themselves, and the people can. If there's enough money, and I'm reluctant to say that at this point in time there's not enough money to begin this process of going around the government. It would take several $100 million over the process, but that may happen at some point. I hope it's within my lifetime, but I don't think so. But what that would mean, that the people would be able to make laws. And that's where the answer is. The people could be able to make laws and effect policy that truly is what Abraham Lincoln projected. It wasn't a fact then, and that we would have a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And right now, we don't have a government by the people.
Or any
the answer is the people.
Or any of the three. Senator Gravel, it has honestly been a true honor and a pleasure to speak to you. We could obviously have gone on these issues for several more hours, but I know you need your time. And again, I thank you for joining us so much on this program and empowering the people to go out and ask for change, and hoping that the people in power start giving us what we want. Everybody join us again next week for the Executive Director of MUFON, Jan Harzan. The week after, Betty Hill's niece, Kathleen Martin, and as well Anthony Sanchez the following week. This is Dr. J signing out. Senator, God bless you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't give the call-in number. We were such on a roll.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It was on a roll. And plus, my organization, Direct Democracy, is not all that functioning well right now. We just don't have the money, and I don't have the drive that I used to have. But it was sufficient to get the word out. I appreciate that very much.
Well, by all means, if there's anything I can do, give me the website for it. Is it on your website, mikegravel.us?
Yeah, no, it's ncid.us. National Citizen Initiative for Democracy. But I don't have anybody keeping it up. And I don't have the ability to do that. So,
well, if there's anybody I can help you partner up that will take care of the multimedia, do you want me to bring anybody? I mean, if there's anything we could do to help, if they
get an interest, if they develop an interest in direct democracy, because that's not everybody's cup of tea. The conventional wisdom is, well, turn out the vote. And I agree with that to a degree. I just hope that Elizabeth Warren will run for president, because she's the person I'd like to see president. She's not perfect, but boy, she's the best I've seen in a long time.
I hope so too, and we can only hope for change. One of the things I wish people would do is just, if we have such corruption in the government, vote them all out and start people. One great thing I saw.
Well, that's a good approach.
Yeah. Well, one thing I saw that on the news the other day, which I thought was one of the greatest. Someone was remarking. This was in South Los Angeles, where where protests are going on, and someone actually came into a church and started protesting there. But the people leaving there, one of them said, I don't mind you protesting. Don't protest in the house of God. But if you really want to go protest, go vote. And I just thought that was such a remarkable statement, because it just goes to show a lot of young people don't vote. I never miss a voting day. But again, what can we do if the people we're putting in power are corrupt? But anyway, Senator.
That's right.
I've kept you on long enough. I don't want to ruin.
Okay. Thank you very much.
God bless you. Have a good one and a happy holidays. And if there's anything I could do ever, you have my number, right?
Yes.
You call me for anything, Senator. Anything, whether it be for law.
I appreciate that very much.
Site. So God bless you and to your family, and have a happy holidays.
Here, bye.
Bye. Johnny.
Yeah, buddy.
What'd you think of the show?
Yeah, it went well. I think he was very warm and pleasant with it.
Yeah, he was better than, I've caught him on some bad days. Hey, I've been holding my piss like a motherfucker. Can you hold on 30 seconds? You know me. Hold on.
Turn this recording off.